Hi. Hi, Nanjida. Can you hear me? I just need to know that you can hear me because otherwise I'm just here speaking to myself. Um, Hi, Nanjida. Can you hear me? Oh, good. I'm glad to hear. Thanks so much for joining. I don't know what this camera is doing. Um, let's see. Okay, this is better. All right. Where are you joining from, Nanjida? Hi, Miriam. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for joining. Um, Yeah, while I wait for other people to join, do you want to? Okay, Nanjida is joining from Hobart. What about you, Miriam? Where are you joining from? Hello, Vicky. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining. Yeah, how has your day been? Okay, Vicky is from Adelaide and Miriam is from Kenya. Wow. Thank you so much for joining. I hope the day is progressing well wherever you are. I mean, the day or the evening. Uh, oh, Vicky used to live in Sydney for 7 years. Oh my goodness, Vicky. You're an old timer. You've been here for as long as myself, I think. Uh, Emma is here as well. I don't know if I pronounce your name properly. Is it Emma or Emma? Hello from Melbourne. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Um, Vicky is asking if I was affected by the floods. No, actually, I wasn't. Thank goodness. My area is quite good in terms of floods and everything. So thankfully, we were not impacted. I just have a very soggy backyard, but it's not. Yeah, I just have a very soggy backyard and grass that has grown up to like my knee, but that's as bad as it got for me. So I'm thankful for that. Hi, Campan. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Campan, you said you're from Hong Kong and you are studying in Brisbane. Hello. How are your studies going in Brisbane? I hope you're enjoying your MSW program. Yeah, I'm so happy to meet all of you. Like, it already feels like a community of social workers or would-be social workers. It's really nice to for all of you to be here. Yeah, Vicky, I wasn't that affected. I'm really glad as well. Even though my heart goes out to everyone else who is doing it tough at this period, people who have lost their homes, people who are displaced. It must be heartbreaking. Yeah. Happy Mardi Gras, everyone. Yes, yes. I was actually looking forward to going out for and joining some of my colleagues for the celebrations, but because of the weather, I mean, it didn't feel like I didn't feel like it was going to stay dry. So yeah, I'm at home, even though today has been dry actually. So that's great. I think there's a fair few of us here right now, and thank you to all of you who sent in questions. I got all of your questions. Some of you sent questions. I think one person sent it by email, and then there were a few questions here on YouTube. I got all of your questions, and I'm so happy that we have this opportunity to discuss those questions. So Vicky, you just started your MSW last week. So sorry, I needed to check what was going on with my internet. It just suddenly dropped out. No, that's fine, Vicky. You didn't send them late. I got them. I got them. So, Campaign, you said your school closed last week, which caused by the flooding. Wow, semester just started. Oh my goodness, that must be tough. So, what's happening? Has everything moved online? And Vicky, you said you're studying online. Has that always been the arrangement, or is it because of COVID? Oh, okay. So while the reactions are, the conversation is going on in the chats, maybe I think maybe it's time to get into the questions, because more people might be joining and they might have questions as well. So I just want to make sure that we have time to get around to answering everybody's questions. But yeah, feel free to continue the conversation in chat, get to meet each other. I believe most people on here are either studying towards becoming a social worker or are considering transitioning into social work practice. So I feel like it's a community already, and we can all get to know each other. And yeah, and if anybody is asking questions that someone else might have the answer to, please feel free to share that in the comments as well, because we're all here to learn. We're all here to support each other. Yeah, so welcome, Oki. You said you're a new sub. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that you subscribed. I am from Indonesia. Oh, wow. You're most welcome. You're most welcome. Okay. All right. So I think I might get into the questions at this point. Vicky, since you're here, and I know that you sent in a question, maybe we will start with yours. And please, if you ask me a question, and Nanjida, you sent me a question as well. Yes, so yeah, that's great. I am going to just get into the questions. I'm not going in any particular order. I'm just going by how they appear. I have my phone on here if you see me looking down, so that I can refer to the questions. Okay, so Vicky, you said you wanted to know how to balance your time between social work studies and work. Okay, so I wouldn't know what your work arrangement is like. Are you working full-time, working part-time? What's that like? And are you studying full-time or part-time as well? Because I think that kind of balances out if you're doing one of them full-time and the other one part-time. But if you're studying full-time, working full-time, then I guess maybe that's where your question is coming from. But something that I have seen that helps is if you are, and this would depend on the particular school that you're at. Some schools might be more flexible around allowing students to be able to negotiate timetable changes and adjustments and things like that. So like I said, it would depend on the school. So I know that usually when you start your first trimester or semester, depending on what system your school runs, might have a requirement for you to complete the core units before you're able to move on to other units. So once you get done with the core units, I want to believe that there might be a bit more flexibility to be able to rearrange your timetable and your course progression. It might be allowed. So you're saying that you're planning to work part-time and study full-time. Okay, so that would be the same as myself. That would be what I did when I studied myself. I worked part-time and I studied full-time. So what I did was, I did a lot of casual jobs at that time, which meant that I had more flexibility to pick and choose the shifts that I could do. So I would work on the weekends, and try to leave my weekdays as free as possible. But I guess it was also partly due to the fact that I have kids, and they were quite young then, and so they needed my attention. But right now, like if I were to study again now that my kids are a little bit older and they are in school, I guess I would still try to arrange my study around, or rather my work around when the kids are not at home with me, if you get what I mean, just so that if I can get some free time on the weekends, I would always prefer to have my weekends free. But I understand that, that might not be the case for you, especially now that you're still doing your core units, which means you have to follow the course progression strictly. So yeah, so that was one thing, negotiating around timetables and class times. So I don't know how big your classes are. Is it the case that classes are offered like several times in one day? I do know that in the school that I work at, some classes are scheduled like twice. There might be a morning class and an evening class, and so you can then choose which one you want to attend. So it's just about looking for those tiny little bits of things that you can shift around to make more time for yourself. So that's it. Hi, Niger mom. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining. You're always welcome. You know that. Okay, and then there's Philemon. Hi, Philemon. You said you're from South Africa. Do you think studying social work is one of the best courses that could lead to permanent residency? I just completed my high school and I've taken the PTE exam. So, Philemon, I have noted down your question and I will come back to it. There are a few people who sent me questions best up here. I'm so sorry that it keeps dropping out. Okay. All right. So Vicky, you said your classes are Tuesday, Wednesday, and Fridays. So yeah, I guess you would then be able to adjust your work to fit the times that you have to be in class or the times that you don't have to be in class. So the second part of your question was around placements. And you said during placements, how can you get the most out of your sessions with your supervisor, especially if they are very busy? Yes. So the arrangement when I studied was that we had supervision sessions once every week, I think, on Fridays of every week. So we would spend the rest of the week doing our placements, and then on Fridays we had to come back to the school. For the life of me, I can't remember whether it was once a week or once a fortnight. Yeah, unfortunately, I actually can't remember. But what I found that really helped was to keep a reflective journal during your placement. So any questions arising out of placement that your placement supervisor, because usually you would have a supervisor at the organization where you're doing your placement, and also have a supervisor from school. So, and I guess that's another thing to clarify. Were you referring to your supervisor from school or your supervisor at your work placement? So if it's regarding supervision from school, I guess whether it's supervision from school or supervision from the person supervising you at your placement, I think it's helpful to keep a reflective journal. So this is just you reflecting on how you are all right. Sorry about that. Like, sorry. I don't know what's happening with my internet, but it is not the best. Anyways, I was saying, Vicky, keep a reflective journal, and that way you can keep track of how you're going, anything that comes up for you that presents a dilemma that you don't know how to deal with, and then raise that with your supervisor whenever they are available, whether it's your placement supervisor or your supervisor from school. I find that it helps. And then don't be shy to ask for feedback around how you're going, because I know placements can be quite daunting in the sense that sometimes you don't even know if you're doing the right thing. So ask for feedback. I found that it helps. Ask to know how you're going and if there's anything that you should be paying attention to, if there's any area that they want to suggest for you to improve. So regarding group supervisions, yes, we used to have group supervisions, both at placement and also back at school. The fortnightly supervision at school used to happen in a group. So we would all sit there and talk in a group. But the supervisors were quite open to people approaching them personally and just asking personal questions that you may not want to raise within the group. So yeah. And then I guess the last part of your question was that you've just started your MSW in Australia a week ago and you applied and got accepted into a volunteer role, but you're still trying to gain paid work experience. Any tips on job searching without any community or support work experience yet? So you're aware of using platforms like LinkedIn, Indeed, Ethical Jobs, but have also heard that a lot of roles go to internal people first. Yes, you actually heard right about internal recruitment happening first. So that's usually the process. Like it goes internal first, and then after that it goes external if they don't find someone internally. But for someone who is just starting out, maybe you're just studying at the moment, and especially because you're in the MSW program, I want to believe that there might be people in your class who are already practicing. So it might be helpful to approach these people and just pick their brains, like find out what the landscape is like, where they work, if they can recommend, if they will be kind enough to let you know if something is coming up in the organizations that they work in, and how you can actually apply, like how do you stand out. Some of them might even be, depending on the kind of rapport that you build with them, some of them might be open to putting in a good word for you, so that you can apply. So that's one way to do it. In most of my videos on here regarding social work, I talk a lot about networking, and I cannot overemphasize the importance of that. I'll use myself as an example. My very first job that I got before I finished my Master of Social Work qualifying, I think it happened through networking. So I had met someone at school. She was actually like a trimester. She started a trimester before me, so she finished before me, and then she started working in this place. And because we had struck up that rapport while we were still together in school, she would tell me when something was coming up in the organization, and that was how she suggested to me that there were a few roles coming out soon, and if I wanted to prepare my CV and apply for these jobs. And then she gave me insider information around what sorts of things they were looking for so that I could tailor my CV to that. I applied for this job, and that was my first job as a social worker. And the good thing is that I had not even graduated from my course yet when I got this job. I still had like a month or a month and a half to go when I landed this job. Now, things have flipped around again because this my friend, she was also looking to change jobs, and it just so happened that where I worked Sorry, my internet just keeps dropping and I don't know what else to do about it. So I was saying that, that's how we've kind of carried each other the whole way. So please do not be shy about networking. Okay, talk to people, talk to your lecturers as well. A lot of them, or some of them, might actually still be practicing, even though they are lecturing as well. So don't be shy, speak to them, talk to them about your goals, and how you can go about achieving those goals. Like if they know anything out in the community that would be helpful, they can also share that knowledge with you. So you said you've got in touch with an AASW networking group in South Australia for college students and social workers. So I'll see how that goes. Yes, that's another good thing. You can also join groups on social media. There's lots of groups. Join all those groups, like for psychologists and counseling, because social work has a huge overlap with some of these other allied health professions. So I hope that answers your question, Vicky. I'll move on to other people's questions just so that we're getting to everyone. So maybe what I'll do is I will switch between the questions that came through on my community post and questions that have been asked here on the chat. So I remember, Philemon, if you're still there, I'm going to answer your question. So you said you wanted to know if studying social work is one of the best courses that could lead to permanent residency. You just completed high school and you've taken the PTE exam. So yes, Philemon, thankfully, social work is a very strong course and a strong profession towards permanent residency here in Australia. So it's one of those occupations that since I came into Australia, which was like almost 7 years ago, it has never ever been dropped from the list. And it is also it's not only on the federal list, it's also on several state lists. So whether it's regional migration you're after, or the nominated visa, that's the 190, or the federal one, which is the 189, whichever one you choose, I think social work is a great option. Yeah. So you said you just completed high school and you've taken the PTE exam. So good luck with the rest of your plans, right? So let me move on to another question that was asked by Monica. I don't know if Monica is here right now. I don't know if Monica is here, but if Monica is here, that's good. But I'm just going to read out her question and then answer that question as well. So Monica wanted to know if social work has prospects for PR compared to other professions like nursing. I think I've already answered that. Yes, social work, just like nursing, has got a really strong prospect. But I am kind of biased here. I'm a social worker myself, so I would say I prefer social work over nursing, and I feel like social work has stronger prospects than nursing. Now, don't ask me what that means, okay? Like I said, I'm just showing my bias here. So the second part of Monica's question was, when taking a master's in social work, do you have to do placement, and how many hours is it, and is it paid? How easy or difficult is it to get a job in social work? Lastly, kindly explain how you can get to specialize in a particular area, for instance, health sector as a social worker. These are really good questions. So in terms of placement, yes, you do need to do a placement. The total placement hours come down to about 980 hours. That's what is recommended through the AASW. It's 980 hours, but we know it's 1,000 hours. At the end of the day, it comes down to about 1,000 hours. So it's usually broken up into 2 blocks of 3 months each. Okay, so you'll probably be doing 3 months first, and then towards the end of your studies, you would do your second 3-month block. Okay, and it is unpaid. Unfortunately, it's full time and it's unpaid. Some people are able to negotiate their placement to to do it part-time, but Sorry, I've just turned off my Wi-Fi. Let's see if it works better with mobile data. Can you all still hear me okay? Please, if you can hear me, just give me a thumbs up or some kind of sign. Otherwise, I'm just sitting down here talking to myself. If you can still hear me, please just let me know. Okay. Yeah, so I've turned off my Wi-Fi. Let's see if it works better on the 4G network. Okay, thank you very much. All right, thanks. Um, yeah, so I was talking about placement. I said placement is unpaid rather. And then how easy or difficult is it to get a job in social work? I feel like when it comes to getting a job, I've touched a little bit on some of the things that I recommend for you to do. Number one, start networking even while you're still studying. So that networking includes talking to your circle within school, but as well spreading out casting out your net a little further. And some of the things you can do is get onto some of the usual job sites like Seek, Ethical Jobs, and I'm going to leave relevant links in the description. I just need to take notes of that. So you can keep checking on these sites, okay? But another way to get a foot in the door would be to volunteer. And if you can volunteer in an area that is um, aligned to what you might want to do long term, then that's good. But as well, I understand that getting volunteering opportunities might also not be that easy. And this is where, like I said, most things actually come down to networking. I will tell you the truth. Talk to people. Don't keep to yourself. Okay. Share your ideas with other people, and who knows, something might come out of that. Sometimes you just need that one person who would point you in the right direction. So please do not keep to yourselves. But as well, volunteering is good. Now, another thing that I want to point out when it comes to volunteering is that even though you might want to be in a specific area of practice as a social worker, please do not limit yourselves. Like, don't be so closed off, because social work practice has overlaps in several areas of practice. Okay, so the skills that you gain in one area are highly transferable into another area. So if you just sit down there and think you're going to find something in the area that you're interested in, and you're not open to looking at other opportunities, that might actually not be a great strategy. All right. So even though you're not getting something, maybe a volunteering opportunity in a particular area that you would prefer to be in, take whatever comes. Okay. Whatever you're able to find, whether it's volunteering or some other kind of job that is related to social work practice. For instance, some people might do support worker jobs. I feel like that's a really great way to bring you closer into that social work space. It might not be what you will do long term as a social worker, okay? But like I said, it brings you closer to that space. It's a better environment for you to gain more insights around what to do when you actually qualify to become a social worker. So whatever comes your way, please take it. Please take it, learn from it. I am sure you would be able to find skills that you can transfer into the other areas that you actually want to be in. And when it comes to finding a job, employers are more, it's more appealing to them when you already have some kind of experience than when you don't have any experience at all. So please do not limit yourselves. All right. So that answers Monica's question about how to find a job. But as well, I've made a video about this, like how to land your first social work job. And I'll put a link to that video in the description after this live stream, and then you can check it out. So let me see if any of you here has asked another question, and then I would answer that before I go back to the community post. So Vicky, you asked if I had to advocate to get my placement in my area of interest. I wish I had done that. It's something that I wish I had done. Okay. I kind of left it in the hands of the school, and maybe that was not the best thing to do because I had a not very good experience when it came to my placements in the school that I studied at. Um, at the end of the day, I enjoyed my placement. I wouldn't say it was a complete waste of time, but maybe if I had been more particular and more like if I had put more effort into advocating to go where I actually wanted to go, maybe that would have given me better results. Okay, it wasn't completely bad, like I said, but maybe find out from your school if there's any leeway for you to be able to do that. I would definitely encourage you to do that. So talk to your placement team way ahead of your placement. Your placement will usually be coming into the end of your second semester or the end of your third trimester, depending on what system your school runs. So if you can start talking to them, like right now, actually, as soon as you start talking to them about what you would like out of your placement and what sorts of places that you would like to go to. If they have any flexibility to let you source your own placements, then maybe it gives you enough time between now and when you actually have to go for your placement to find a place that would accept you to do your placements with them. Okay. So Oladele, thank you so much for joining. Sorry, I haven't acknowledged your presence since you came in, but I am grateful that you joined. So let me see. You said you want to know whether changing a profession to social work at an adult age, like late 40s to early 50, is really worth it. I would say, Oladele, it's worth it at any time. Okay, you can always do a career transition at any time, and social work happens to be a profession that um, a lot of people attest to the fact that they find it really rewarding. So yes, you can always do that. Okay, and if your question is just related to transitioning into social work practice and it's not anything related to migration by changing into social work, then yes, I would say go for it. You're never too old to become a social worker. All right. So, okay, maybe there's a second part to your question. You said, which should you consider? Love of the profession or the lucrative nature of the profession and PR prospects? This is a multi-pronged question. Um, yeah, some people would consider, how fulfilling they find a career or a job as their priority. Okay, some other people would pay more attention to how lucrative it is in terms of how much they get paid. Okay, I think that's a really subjective that's a the answer to that question would be really subjective depending on who is answering the question. I think people join that, but I think for the most part, for social work in particular, and other professions in the helping professions or allied health, I want to believe that there's a strong element of that humanitarian touch and wanting to actually help people and finding it fulfilling. Otherwise, I don't see how you would last if you are just doing it for the money. I don't see how you would last because social work is one that comes with a heavy emotional it can leave a heavy emotional toll. So if it's something that you're not passionate about doing or something that you're just not interested in, even the money is not going to keep you in it. No matter how much you're paid, you would not want to be in it. In terms of the PR prospects, like I think I've answered that already, it has very strong prospects towards permanent residency. But again, just referring back to the first part of your question, you need to know that there's an age limit on most of the skilled migration options to Australia. Okay, so for someone in their late 40s, early 50s, unfortunately, it might be a bit hard to get permanent residency. Okay, and it doesn't matter whether they have a social work degree or not. It might be a little difficult because just the way that the skilled migration visas are structured, they have an age limit to them, and 45 years is usually the limit. 44 years actually. So above 44, the chances drop dramatically, like significantly drop. So yeah, unfortunately, that's just how it is. Okay, Vicky. Okay, I don't think that was a question. Yeah. All right, you're just taking notes. Okay, so Vicky, you're asking which area was my first placement. Okay, my first placement was in community development. I worked there as a project officer. So basically what I was placed in this community organization. So what we did was frontline work with different client groups in the community. And at the time that I joined them, there was a big project they were working on. So I took over from the cohort of placement students that had actually started the project. So I took over from them to run the project to completion. It wasn't just me, there was a batch of us working on the same project. So the end goal of the project was that there was a community event, okay? And my own part of that project was to work with a specific client group in there. So it was basically just letting them tell their stories and then finding ways to display their stories and how they are functioning units within that community. And the client group I was working with was one that unfortunately would usually receive a lot of stigma related to the kind of work that they did. So there were sex workers actually. So it was my job in that role to work with them. And I think it was really good in the sense that, it helped me to be more open-minded. Okay, so that's why I said it wasn't completely useless, but I wish I had advocated more around where I ended up getting placed. But yeah, that was my first placement. So Vicky said you have a lot of classmates, 50 plus classmates in MSW. Wow, that's a huge class. We had nowhere near that number. I went to ACAP here in Sydney, so our classes were smaller than that. All right. Shola, thank you so much for joining. Thank you. You said thanks for all your videos, Chioma. You're doing a great job. Thank you very much. It really, it warms the heart to hear that. Damity, welcome, welcome, welcome. And thank you. Yes, thank you very much. All right. I can't see another question on the chat, so I'll go back to the community post and answer some of the questions on there. I think I have addressed Monica. So I had another question from Prashant. Prashant, you said you're from India, and Prashant, you had some really great questions, some really great questions. So the first one was how to become a mental health social worker in Australia. So I'm going to address that. So to become a mental health social worker in Australia, there are two steps actually. So the first would be to complete your base qualification to become a social worker, which would be either a Bachelor of Social Work degree or a Master of Social Work qualifying. Okay, so or a Master of Social Work. So as long as you have your base degree, that's the very first step. And then the next step would be for you to work in a mental health practice for at least 2 years, and it has to be full time for 2 years. So once you meet that minimum requirement, and then you can also demonstrate that you have had appropriate supervision, appropriate and regular supervision throughout your 2 years. And you can also demonstrate that you've done professional development, continuous professional development in specific areas related to mental health practice, and also something that they call focused psychological strategies. So it's FPS. Okay, FPS. I'm having a bit of a brain freeze. So once you can show that you've had up to 30 hours of continuous professional development related to mental health practice and also the FPS, once you meet all of this, then you can apply to AASW for for credentialing. So this is where they give you accreditation to become a mental health social worker. Okay. Now in your application, there are other requirements that you would have to fulfill. And I actually did take notes here just so that I don't forget. So again, you would have to still demonstrate in your application that you meet the first set of criteria that I mentioned. And then you also have to demonstrate your knowledge of clinical social work practice in a mental health setting. So I guess some of the ways in which you can demonstrate that you meet that requirement would be to get a reference from your employer or your employers in those 2 years. Okay, they would have to vouch or attest to the fact that you have actually gained that work experience with them and that you've done your work well, obviously, in the 2 years. And so those are like the base criteria that you have to meet, or the base requirements you have to meet. So once you become a mental health social worker, or once you've been given that credential as an accredited mental health social worker, you also have ongoing requirements to meet. So it doesn't end there. You still have to continue to participate in continuous professional development, and you have to log in at least 30 hours of CPD per year for every year that you remain a mental health social worker. You have to do that every year. And then you might also be subject to periodic audits from the mental health unit of the AASW. They would have to come out every once in a while and just make sure that you're still maintaining your professional standards of practice, and that you're keeping to the code of ethics for social workers and all of that. So it's an ongoing process. You have the first process for you to become a mental health social worker, and then you have to continue to meet those other requirements, ongoing. I hope that answers your question. So the next part of your question, Prashant, was, what is the difference between a medical social worker and a mental health social worker? So the difference between a medical social worker is just that they work in a hospital or in a health setting. That's just it. But whether they need any special qualifications for that, no, they don't. On top of their base qualification, they don't need any other special training to be able to work in the hospital. But here in Australia, obviously, for you to work in a hospital, you would need to take certain vaccines. And I am not talking about COVID vaccines. I think you need to take hepatitis vaccines. Like, there's a batch of vaccines you would need to take before you can work in a hospital, but that's usually like the base requirements for you to be able to work in a hospital. And if you're interested in continuing as a hospital social worker, I would say you can actually arrange that to be one of your placement opportunities while you're still in school. So if you're still studying, then maybe you want to take those vaccines way before it's time for you to go to placement. I remember that I wanted to do one of my placements in a hospital, but the only thing that kind of hindered my progress with pursuing that was I did not take my vaccines on time. And some of these vaccines, you take one dose now, and then you have to wait like 6 weeks before you take the second dose. And if you don't have your complete doses, you can't start working there. So unfortunately, I left it too late, and so I couldn't pursue that placement opportunity. So if you're interested in that, please keep that in mind. Then what was the other part of your question, Prashant? You said if someone wants to become a mental health social worker in Australia, then which university will be best for them? To be honest, there's no specific university that is, that specializes in just mental health social work. The curriculum in most universities would be the same, but what I have found is that some universities might lean a little bit more towards offering courses in a particular area. Like, you might be in a university that offers more electives around mental health, or around domestic violence and family systems and things like that. And then you might be in another institution that has electives that are more related to like counseling practice and things like that. So these are some of the other things that you also want to pay attention to if you're still searching for a school to study at. Okay, so if you're interested in mental health social work, I guess you would just have to pick more electives in that area, but there's no specific school that specializes just in mental health social work, if that makes any sense. Okay, so you can study anywhere, just as long as you then move on to working in a mental health practice if you want to become an accredited mental health social worker. Yeah, so Vicky, so much work to become a mental health social worker, but I'm sure it's still rewarding. Yes, it seems like a lot of work. Yeah. To be honest, if money was a priority, social work probably isn't a go-to profession. I would second that. Yeah. Social work, I think, in terms of the pay, is okay. It's a little above average, but I always say it's not the kind of pay that will make you rich, okay? That will make you, very wealthy if that is your goal. But yeah. Okay, so let me see if there's more questions from the community post. So Nanjida, you actually asked a question. You said you're from Thailand. You're a first-year student doing social work here in Australia. I would like to ask you about the placement you did when you studied. Did you choose where you wanted to do the placement by yourself? What field did you choose to go to? After completing the placement, did most students get any offer or contract to continue to work in the organization? Thank you in advance and always appreciate your videos. And I appreciate you appreciating me. So yes, so I've talked a little bit about my first placement. My second placement was in a pregnancy support service. Okay, so it was a women's support service, but focused on helping people who were faced with an unplanned pregnancy. And it was interesting because we got a lot of young people coming through in that service who were struggling with, making decisions around an unplanned pregnancy. So that was my second placement. Again, just as with the first placement, it wasn't a great experience leading up to being placed there. It was a very last minute decision because unfortunately, the first place that I was supposed to go, it kind of fell through last minute. And so the school had to scramble around to put me somewhere. And yeah, they just sent me to this place. But it was really great experience because I would say that that was my first real exposure to working with victims of domestic violence, because even though it wasn't like a specific domestic violence service, I mean, if we're talking about unplanned pregnancy with really young people, there's always an element of family violence there. There's usually an element of family violence or domestic violence happening as well. So I was in that service and it was great supporting those women. Now, interestingly, I got the sense that I would have been offered a job there if I had wanted to stay back. But I didn't want to stay back there because it didn't really align with what I wanted to do. And then again, like I said, I actually got a job before I finished my placement in this place. So yeah, maybe if I had finished my social work course and there wasn't a job as yet lined up, then I might have continued in this organization. It was a great place to work with. I enjoyed working there. But because I had already found a job somewhere else, I had already been accepted for a job elsewhere. So it was easy for me to just move on from there. Okay, so that's it for my placement. Um, what was the other part of your question? Did you choose where you want to do the placement? No, I didn't choose, unfortunately. I didn't choose. I wish I did, but yeah, I didn't take it as serious as I should have. So after completing the placement, did most students get any offer or contract to continue to work in the organization? Some students actually got lucky and they were offered jobs. I do know that here in Sydney, for instance, so if any of you is in Sydney, FACS, which is Family and Community Services, they're always recruiting, and they actually like to take on newly graduated social workers. So maybe that's an opportunity to keep an eye on. Like keep an eye on facts. They are always recruiting, especially if you want to work in child protection and, you know, family systems, anything around family systems. If you're interested in that, then definitely keep an eye out on what's happening in that space. Yeah, so Vicky, you're saying some unis have trauma and grief electives, yes? Yeah. Thank you so much, Najid. I'm happy that you found that useful. So Vicky, you have a question. Did most of your jobs or placements require you to drive? um, well, I took public transport for, yeah, my first one, I took public transport. I wouldn't say that it was easier for me to take public transport. I just felt like whether I drove or I took public transport, it was still the same kind of stress. So I just choose to take public transport because at least I didn't have to, like I wasn't the one driving and I didn't have to, I could actually relax on the train and just read a book or something or, you know, catch up on something online. But in terms of commuting to and from work, I didn't find it easy, whether I was driving or taking public transport. I don't know if that's what you wanted to hear from that question, but yeah, that was it. So let's see what came in by email. Some emails I've already responded to them directly, so yeah. So Philemon actually sent me an email. So Philemon, I don't know if you're still here, but you said you would be enrolling in TAFE, New South Wales for a university degree, and you worry about not finding a job after investing so much in my studies. I'd love to know what will be the chances of getting employment and PR after completion of the Diploma of Community Service or a bachelor degree in social work in a regional area after a diploma and a degree. Okay, so what I'm getting from your question is that there's a specific element around being in a regional area, and then you're going to be studying a diploma first before you move on to the bachelor degree. I hope I understand that. I hope that's, you know, my understanding of your question is correct. But yeah, like I have said previously, social work is very vast in terms of the areas of practice. And so there are so many opportunities out there, so many different careers that you can have in social work practice. And I feel like wherever you find yourself, you will find a job. Now, in terms of how quickly you would get a job soon as you graduate, unfortunately, I really can't speak to that because I've never lived in a regional area and I really do not know what it's like out there. But if we're talking about, you know, finding a job quicker, I want to believe that if you're in one of the bigger cities like Sydney or Melbourne or Brisbane, then you have better chances there, only off the fact that there are more job opportunities there. These are highly populated areas, and so it just stands to reason that there would be more job opportunities in the bigger cities than in the regions. Okay, but that's not to say that you can't find a job in the regions. I know a few people who are in regional areas, people that I actually studied with here in Sydney who have moved out to regional areas, and they all have jobs. So I want to believe that, like I said, social work is one of those professions that you would find jobs in wherever it is you go here in Australia. Okay, so now whether you're going to get a job with your diploma, unfortunately, I really can't speak to that because a diploma does not qualify you to become a social worker. The minimum requirement in terms of your education to become a social worker is a bachelor degree. So if you're looking to get a social work specific job on a diploma, unfortunately, that's not going to work. Okay, but yeah, if you're studying in a regional area because you want to maybe gain more points through the PR or the skilled migration visas, then that's a good, you know, it's a good plan because you get more points there. But, you know, in terms of the work, I am still a bit Yeah, I'm still a bit unsure, especially with the diploma aspect of it. I really can't give you any more answers apart from that. Hi, Azizat. Thank you. Thank you for joining. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Yeah. So, Vicky, you said you noticed some support worker roles seem to require home visits or driving clients to places which might need you to have a car. Yeah, some jobs actually require you to have a car. I've never been in a job that required me to have a car. Okay, yes, actually I have. It was one of the casual jobs I did while I was still studying. But even though there was a requirement for us to have a car, the organization actually supplied a car. So at the end of the day, I didn't have to use my own car to drive clients around. I was using the company car. So yeah, but I do know that some organizations require that you have a driver's license and you also have a car. So yeah. So let me see if I'm just going to scroll through and see if I have missed anything. I hope I haven't. Yep. I've answered Philemon. Yeah. Vicky, yes. Yeah. All right. I think I might have answered everyone's questions. Yeah. So if you have any more questions, please feel free to ask. Thank you so much, Aziza. Thank you. All right. Do you have any recommendations for additional training on top of your MSW? I have done the mental health first aid. Yeah. Okay, that's from Vicky. Yeah, I think you would find that you have to continue upskilling yourself. Like you never stop in this profession. You just never stop. Um, but as well, apart from continuous professional development, maybe you also want to stay on top of things like things that are happening within your practice area. Okay, maybe you want to stay on top of that. And the best way to do that would be to attend events. A lot of these events are now online, some of them are free. As an example, for me, I attend a lot of webinars through um, like legal aid and yeah, legal aid, that's one. And then the women's legal service, I attend a lot of webinars from them as well. Sometimes the police might have community events that they host every once in a while. It's usually like an interagency thing. But if you're opportune to attend one of those, again, depending on your area of practice, right? So these are things that I would encourage you to do, but as well, continue to upskill yourself. Blue Knot is a really good organization. They do a lot of trauma related courses. So maybe you want to check Blue Knot out. I also have a membership with Mental Health Academy. So if you are interested in learning more, gaining more knowledge, and improving your understanding of mental health and just how to work within that practice setting, Mental Health Academy is also good. I also follow the alumni community in the school that I attended, which is ACAP, and I feel like they have a really good structure around continuous professional development, and it's free for those of us who are alumni. So I attend a lot of those events as well. So yeah, it's good to attend these things. Yeah. Okay, so I don't have any more questions, and looking at the time, I think we have actually hit 1 hour. So in the absence of other questions, I might actually start, just winding down. But I just want to say thank you so much, everyone who joined. And I hope that this was actually helpful and I answered some of your questions, if not all of them. So yes, but if you've got any questions, please do not hesitate. Send me an email. I always have my email address in my videos, but as well, I'm also going to link it under this live stream when the recording becomes available, which is usually like a day or two after the event. So I would have relevant links in the description box as well. I will also link my email address there for anyone who still has questions that they want to ask. Let me look through my email and be sure that I haven't skipped anybody's question, because it would be rude. Yeah, okay. I think I answered everyone's questions on the email as well. But so Vicky, you're asking what are some new videos you have planned? Okay, so I have a few social work related ones. So I want to talk about some of the skills that are relevant to social work practice. Um, there's also, how to build resilience and look after yourself, because that's a big one in social work. Because as I said, unfortunately, social work is one of those professions that has a really high turnover rate because of I guess, the emotional and psychological and even mental burden of having to carry huge caseloads in some cases. For some people, it's about exposure to a lot of trauma, high trauma, and the risks around that would be vicarious trauma, compassion fatigue, secondary trauma, and all of that. So there's a real risk there for social workers, and we need to be looking after ourselves. So in subsequent videos, I might be touching a little bit on some of those areas. Yeah, and then I also have another thing planned for my channel. I don't want it to be all just formal, me sitting down and talking very formally. I've always wanted to, have to contribute towards the discussions around social issues that we all struggle with, or that the society struggles with. So I intend to be doing a lot more around that. I did just this past few weeks, like in the past 3 to 4 weeks, I've been heavily involved in some education and preventative campaigns and workshops that I have had to deliver to, some of the students in the university that I work at. And I feel like these are conversations that should be continuing in the wider community. So I also hope to be bringing some of that into this space as well. So please look out for that. I hope it will be things that you would enjoy listening to. Okay. Yep. So thank you so much, Azizat. I am so grateful that you shared this video. And for everyone who joined me on here today, if you can please give this video a thumbs up on your way out, I would highly appreciate that. Okay. Yes. And if you want to share it to any other person who might benefit from this kind of information, you're more than free to do so as well. Nanjida, you're saying thank you so much. You're always grateful. Yeah, you found my channel. Thank you so much, Nanjida. You're welcome. You're welcome to hang out with me anytime. Okay, so guys, I am afraid I might have to end the live stream here, but I just wanted to thank all of you for joining. I really enjoyed today's discussion, and I feel like the questions that you asked were really strong questions, and I hope I did justice to answering them. You deserve so much more followers, such a good creator. Thank you, Vicky. Thanks a lot. That warms my heart. Yeah. Have a lovely night, Aziza. Thank you so much. And bye, everyone. Bye. Bye. I'll have all those links in the description very soon. But bye-bye, and good day or good night wherever you are.